So it's absolutely no secret to anyone out there that's been following this channel that I'm a massive fan of Arcade1Up as a whole. As you can tell, I wear it on my sleeve and shirt, so to speak, but one of the most common questions of all the coverage and content I've created surrounding the Arcade1Up product I get more frequently than anything is why I don't mod an Arcade1Up cabinet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I finally broke down and I've found the cabinet of all cabinets that I wanted to mod and create my own love child, so to speak, Granddaddy Arcade mod. The Star Wars Trilogy Arcade from Sega. So let me go ahead and give you a little bit of the backstory as to why I chose Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. See, I've got a very deep-rooted history with this game. In fact, there was a movie theater in my hometown that I frequented all the time that actually had this cabinet in the lobby, and every single time I went there to watch a movie, you know I had to put tons and tons of quarters in playing this arcade game. And unfortunately, Sega really only gave us a kind of haphazard port on the Sega 32X of the Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. And if you played the arcade version and you've played the Sega 32X version, well, you know they are not one and the same, and the arcade game is far superior in every way. But I didn't really want to do this haphazard, and I didn't want to do this the lazy way and do like a Raspberry Pi and just play a 32X version of this. No, I had to go all out, and to get this game up and running and play the way it's meant to be, well, you have to use a PC, and that's where we're going to go around back, and I'm going to show you all the little details and all the little finite pieces that I had to put together to get this up and running and have a dedicated Star Wars Trilogy arcade cabinet. Before I give you a peek behind the curtain, I just want to let you know that yes, I've done absolutely zero wire management thus far because I'm still kind of tinkering with it. So keep that in mind before you see the rat's nest. But up top, we've got a custom H panel from DIY Retro Arcade. This has got 4-inch speaker grill holes cut into it, and I've mounted my speakers underneath it, so I've got sound coming out this way. This is completely optional. You don't have to do this to complete this type of build. In fact, the monitor I'm using actually has built-in speakers, and they're plenty loud enough to actually enjoy your arcade gaming that way. And pro tip, if you actually wanted to do this yourself or save money, you can actually use the plexiglass overlay that came with your arcade cabinet that you purchased and just kind of use that as a reference and guide, and just get a Sharpie and put holes or marks where you want to put your holes, and then you can go ahead and drill out your own speaker holes. But I just wanted to test out DIY Retro Arcade stuff, give them a shout out, hopefully send them some business that way, because they make some awesome accessories and control panels and all sorts of great stuff for the Arcade1Up products. So underneath it, like I mentioned, I've got two 4-inch speakers. These are nothing really crazy name brand or anything like that. These are just generic kind of cheap speakers I find on Amazon, and I throw in most of my arcade projects. They are cheap, like $12 for the pair, free shipping, Prime enabled. They sound good, massive magnets on them, so keep that in mind. You may have to do certain things if you're going to throw these in here in a stock 1-up cabinet. Just keep in mind clearance for your marquee. So the marquee itself is actually a hybrid. I've took an arcade mod-up and an old arcade game factory. I had two marquees of theirs, and I just kind of put parts of both of them together to make the marquee of my desire. My monitor, I've got a Dell 2007 FPB 20-inch monitor, and holding it on there is the Tulsa Arcade's custom monitor mount. This thing is absolutely amazing. It makes it super simple and easy to mount a custom monitor of your choosing, sizing, into the Arcade1Up panels. So they come with all the hardware, so the nuts, the bolts, the screws, everything you need to do. And to install in the cabinet, it's very simple. In fact, installation, what I did, I just put my 4 bolts into the back of the monitor, and as you can tell, I didn't even take out the monitor housing. I left it completely the way it was, but I found it easiest to put the cabinet on its side, and that way you've got it nice and level, and then you're going to put the control panel, install it, make sure it's nice and snug, and that way you've got a good leveling and a baseline for putting the Tulsa Arcade's monitor mount, and make sure you can kind of tweak it as you so desire. So if you want to tilt the monitor a little bit back or forth, you can do that, and then it's very simple. You're just easily going to screw in the 4 corner holes on these L brackets that are supplied, and then you're good to go. One of the great features I like about this Dell 2007 FPV monitor is it actually has 2 USB ports in the back that it's included, And I'm actually using these USB ports to power some LED strips. So I've got the LED strip for my Light Up Marquee, and I've also got the LED strip for my custom lit riser with the plexiglass custom graphics and display from Tulsa Arcades as well. Some awesome products that they're making, but got a little super long LED, so I've just got it run down here for extra light in the cabinet when I'm in here and tinkering. Powering the speakers, I just have this cheap Kinter Amazon $8 stereo amplifier. Do have to make sure you get like a stereo to 3.5 millimeter plug in there. That way you can connect it to the PC for your audio out. But very cheap, very easy volume control. Like I said, completely optional because the monitor itself actually has built-in speakers. So you really only have to do this type of thing if you're kind of an audiophile and you're just wanting a little better sound quality. And then the thing that is actually running the show, like I said, this is the Dell Optiplex 9020 small form factor PC. You can find these type of things all over the internet, Facebook, Marketplace, eBay, Amazon. I'll put all sorts of product links in the video description box below so you guys can find all the parts I'm using. And then power and everything, we just got a super generic cheap power supply, 12 volt power brick that goes to the Kintner audio, and then we've got our power for our monitor and our computer itself. So simple stuff. And for the front of the monitor, we went with the Tulsa Arcades custom bezel as well as the plexiglass. It's very awesome. It just fits right on top of the Dell Optiplex monitor, piece of cake. I didn't even take off the housing like I mentioned earlier. I just put this on top. All I did was put some 3-in command strips on the back side of the bezel overlay on each side, stuck it on there, and then I put the plexiglass on top of it. Make sure when you're doing the plexiglass that number one, you don't over tighten things and crack it, but number two, you always remember that dealing with plexiglass, there's always 2 layers of protective film, so make sure you pull off both layers, peel back those corners, make sure everything's flush. I used a couple of little C-clamps and vice grip type things to make sure the bezel and the plexiglass was lined up everything. Then screwed it together and then 3M'd it onto the front of the monitor. Make sure you clean everything nice and good because you don't want hair or dust or debris, anything in between those layers before you stick it on there, because then it will be a pain in the butt to deal with later. Now, in terms of controls, everything for the most part was relatively simple. So I had 2 hat buttons sitting around, so I went ahead and reused those. They've got cherry micro switches in them, but you don't have to go that route. You can reuse whatever buttons came with your Arcade1Up panel that you're repurposing, so to speak. And then what I had to do a little bit of searching for was to find something that replicated and recreated the experience of those giant light up event buttons that were so prominent on the Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. And what I found were these 60mm buttons on Amazon, and they're really cool because they actually, even though they're 60mm, they have the same thread diameter as your normal standard arcade buttons, and they're the screw-on type, and they actually come with LEDs and micro switches and everything. Now the micro switches, of course, are cheap, but these are the BLEE you'll find all over the place. They're kind of noisy, but they work just the same. But I absolutely love how this turned out because for the scale of everything, these oversized buttons don't feel cartoonish, and they make this control panel look very similar to the iconic Star Wars Trilogy Arcade cabinet. I've got these hat buttons rigged for a start and a coin select. I didn't want to put them down below anywhere because I didn't want to cut into the beautiful graphics that Arcade Graphics displayed and presented here, and I didn't really want to throw them anywhere else on the control panel just because I didn't like the way they looked. So threw them off to the right here, out of the way, piece of cake. The joystick, now this is where things get interesting because you have all sorts of options for joysticks. So this is the Ultramark Ultra Joystick 360. This is the flight stick version. Now, there is an $18 version that is a complete knockoff of this on Amazon. In fact, I've got it right here to show you because I know so many people in the message boards are telling people, well, you just need to buy this. Absolutely incorrect. This is essentially this is a normal 8-way joystick with a flight handle. This is not going to operate in the same fashion that this Ultramark Ultra Joystick will, because this does all sorts of great things. Now, this Ultramark joystick actually has a software program that comes with it, and you actually plug this in via USB. You can hook it up to a USB encoder if you like, but you just plug this joystick in via USB. It's powered, it's got its own PCB and connectivity. You just hook that up the way it is, but you plug it into the computer, you run the computer program, and you can remap this control any way, shape, form you like. So if you want a 2-way joystick, you want a 4-way joystick, you want an 8-way joystick, or you want complete analog control of your joystick. Heck, you could even actually turn this joystick into the mouse. So we're running a PC on here. If I wanted to use this as a mouse instead of an actual mouse, I could reprogram it. It's very simple. You just click on a button, updates the firmware, piece of cake, and then bada bing, this joystick is ready to go. This $18 knockoff, although it looks identical in every single way, first of all, listen, micro switches. Second of all, comes with 0 instructions, and it just comes with a cable with 3 wires. Now, if you know anything about electricity and wiring and all that stuff, this is not hard to figure out. The white is a trigger button, the red is a trigger button, and the black is your common ground, and then you hook up these micro switches. But if you were to try to use this type of joystick on this type of game, well, you would play the game and you would only be able to control corner, 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 corner. You would never have any control of these nuanced spaces, and that's where an analog joystick is really going to be what you need for this. I went with the Ultramark. It's $80, kind of expensive, but for the form factor and the size of everything, yes, I could have got a cheap PlayStation 3 flight joystick for $20 probably on Amazon, but the thing would have been massive. It would have been sitting up here, and it really would have overshadowed the size of the cabinet. Keeping with the 3/4 scale, I think this flight joystick is perfectly scaled. It fits nicely in the palm of the hand. It's very comfortable. The only negative I have to say anything about on this joystick is the fact that it has a little bit of a play left to right, and that's something I even noticed on this knockoff version. It does a little bit of left to right play. Doesn't matter where you tweak or tighten it, that is just part of it, so that's kind of a downside, but I didn't really notice it messing up my gameplay too much, other than it just feels a little weird to have it shift in your hand. But other than that, highly recommend this joystick for any kind of build you're doing in regards to a flight controller. In terms of the emulator, we're running this off the Super Model 3 emulator that emulates Sega Model 3 arcade games. I can run any of those on this software program. It's got its own built-in graphic user interface, or you can pair it with something like Launchbox or Big Box. Either way, the great thing about the graphic user interface of the Sega Model 3, aka the Super Model 3 emulator, is that you can actually map your own buttons any way, shape, or form. So you can play it with a mouse, a joystick, a USB controller, anything like that. All you have to do is know your button configurations, map them, save them. For the sake of this video, I have to turn off the music when showing you guys the gameplay of Star Wars later on, just because Disney, George Lucas, all those people, though, the moment they hear that iconic Star Wars music, well, they will hit me with a copyright. So kind of neat that that's a feature that I can turn off the music, but I can still have the game sound effects. But enough talking about it, let's get into it. Let's see if all that hard work paid off and see how the action and the gameplay looks on this Star Wars Trilogy Arcade custom mod project, shall we?
If you will not fight, then you will meet your destiny. Stand by. Just lock in foils in attack position. Accelerate to attack speed.
So a little bit of an overview of just the main items that you'll need on this and what I went with. So the cabinet itself was a Space Invaders cabinet, found it at Walmart for $75. Heck of a deal right there. It's even got that nice little trim that really kind of ties in with the Star Wars colors. On the back was the DIY Retro Arcade H panel with the 4-inch speaker holes. Completely optional, you don't need to go that route. Like I said, the monitor itself comes with built-in speakers, so if you're going to use this same monitor, you don't have to do that, but if you're a little bit of an audiophile, you can go that route, and you can also use 4-inch speakers. Found them on Amazon, cheap. The Kittner stereo amplifier, again, optional, don't have to do it. Lit Marquee, there's various different companies out there to do amazing work on third-party Lit Marquees. Standard going rate on those is most of the time is $50. Giant LED buttons can be found on Amazon. I'll put product links down there below. I think there was a pack of like 6 or 8 or something like that that come with micro switches as well as the LEDs. And it was, I think, $12. The joystick itself, the Ultramark joystick, highly recommend it. You could go a different joystick that is USB capable, something like a PlayStation 3 flight stick, but then again, you're gonna deal with that weird form factor of the joystick being half the size of your screen in your cabinet. This is small in form factor and it fits in your hand and it performs beautifully. I absolutely love the way this thing plays, so highly recommend it. It's worth the $80. I had 2 hat buttons lying around. I repurposed those so that it didn't cost me anything. You could reuse whatever buttons come on the Arcade1Up cabinet that you're custom modding, so keep that in mind. The beautiful graphics you see before you, the entire thing was $100 from arcadegraphics.com. They were having a sale. It was a custom job. I literally just typed in and said, hey, I need the graphics from the Star Wars Trilogy Arcade made by Sega. Let me know if you guys need any kind of like reference pictures or anything like that. Consummate professionals that they are, they didn't need any reference pictures. They knocked it out of the park, first try. Looks beautiful, absolutely. You don't have to go with custom graphics, but if you're gonna do this type of modded project, of course you want the cabinet to look beautiful if you're gonna do all this hard work. USB encoders underneath the control panel. I just have one, and it's wired up to function with the light up buttons as well as my start and coin buttons over here that I'm using. So those are pretty simple. Dell 20-inch monitor, the 2007 FPV monitor. Again, I think I paid $60 on eBay, free shipping. Just found a used one. They're all over the place. Very simple to find these. And then on the front, I also have the Tulsa Arcade's bezel for this monitor, as well as the plexiglass overlay that really kind of gives it that nice finish. Those are beautiful. Highly recommend them. Very simple. You just literally put them on top of the monitor. It couldn't be any easier as far as installation, and it really gives it that nice look and feel, and it makes it look like it blends in perfectly. On the back side, again, we have the Tulsa Arcade's monitor mount. Highly recommend that. That'll make it so easy if you're throwing in a wider, bigger LCD and you're not going to repurpose the stock Arcade1Up monitor. You can completely do that. You'll just have to hook up that monitor with a driver control board, so keep that in mind. But again, you can get out of this as cheap, as easy as possible. The computer itself was $200, $199 on eBay, free shipping. The one I got is a little more beefier than I absolutely needed as far as requirements. Some more bling was the Tulsa Arcade's custom lit arcade riser. This thing's beautiful. I figured, hey, I'm going all out. We need some beautiful custom lit riser to match our beautiful custom lit marquee and this amazing cabinet, so why not go all out? And I highly recommend you check out Tulsa Arcades and all the other product people. Like I said, arcadegraphics.com, DIY Retro Arcade. I just can't say enough about the community that Arcade1Up has as far as all these amazing accessories and options, and they just really make it very simple for you to do this type of thing if you want to. So, and that wraps it up for today's video. I'll be sure to put all the product links down in the video description box below for all the items that I used on this custom build. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know every time I upload new content. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.